Hi again, this is Anna Imagination with the Healing Garden. Welcome to Shifting Perspectives. So this is like right off of my last video, and I'm sitting here drinking my tea and I'm re-listening to the video and I'm analyzing it, and I saw this thing in the back of my mind, and that's always marks the spot for me. Whenever there's like that little shadowy bit of, oh, that's the thing we're never saying. Oh, I say it, I go right toward it. I'm like, oh, I'm like a moth to a flame with that thing. So I am talking about in the last video. This is the video, la 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 la, la 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 la. Go ahead and take a look here because I'm going to drop it down below so you guys can see it. La 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 la, la 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 la. Do 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 do. The universe of the self building your life. That is what I am. So it is around 5 minutes into this video. Let me go ahead and put this down below so you guys can like reference it without searching for it. La da 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 da, la da 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 da. Referencing 5 minutes in. Okay. All right. So now it's, if you want to look at the video later. So this is like a side note, asterisk, side note. This is what I'm doing here. So I'm looking at this and I had a massive, oh, I felt it. And I'm like, I'm never saying this. I think it a lot. It's in the back of my mind and I'm never saying it. And I really need to say it. There is a thing about children that we never discuss, that we never talk about. And it is the thing that catches, it's the catch-22 of our fuck-uppery. When we are 4 and 5, we know what we want. We know who we are. We've got life figured out. True story. We have life figured out at 4 to 5 years old. No, really, by 4 and 5, we have life figured out. The reason why we discredit life figured out at 4 and 5 is because some asshole came along, laughed at us and said, you're kids, you don't know anything. So everything you thought you knew at 4 and 5 gets thrown out the window because some asshole gaslit you and said, you're a kid. You don't have a fucking idea what you want. We're going to talk about that. 4 and 5-year-olds have more knowledge of the universe than most advanced scholars and thinkers of the world. Because a 4 and a 5-year-old has something that most people over the age of 15 lack. A 4 and a 5-year-old has confidence, self-awareness, emotional management. They respect the emotional flow of the physics. Because a 4 and a 5-year-old has these things down, they have high self-esteem. They have a massive ability to make choice. They have a defined sense of self. By the time you are 15, some dumb fuck has come along and taken all of those things away from you. So that by the time you're 20, you don't know who you are. So that by the time you're 30 and you have kids of your own, you are the dumb fuck going, you're 4 and 5. What the fuck do you know about life? A 4 and a 5-year-old knows more about life than most adults. In fact, most adults really need to shut the fuck down, sit down, and take some lessons from 4 to 5-year-olds. Because 4 and 5-year-olds are uninhibited. And as a result, they have such a heightened sense of awareness that they know what they want. Here's the thing. By the time you are 4 and 5, you have the components of the self and you know what you want. The problem is that dumb fuck of a 30-year-old has come along and told you that you are 4 and 5 and therefore you know nothing about life. So you couldn't possibly know what you want. So you then spend the rest of your life looking for what you want because no 5 or 4-year-old could possibly know what they want, even though you had the answers figured out when you were 4 and 5 years old. So we abandon what we want at 4 and 5. And then we begin this massive pursuit of what do I want? And every time you even come close to what the 4 and 5-year-old you wanted, you go, oh, I don't know anything about life. It couldn't possibly be that. So you go on search for more, trying to figure out what you want because you were told that you couldn't possibly know what you want at 4 and 5. As a result, the thing that you actually do want, what you decided you wanted when you were 4 and 5 years old, is the very thing you avoid constantly because you couldn't possibly have known what life was all about by the time you were 4 and 5 because you were only 4 and 5. This is what I call ageism. It is a type of unspoken, unidentified racism, prejudice that targets age. It is the stupid assumption that children are idiots, when in fact adults are idiots. I have heard many wondrous things from 4 and 5-year-olds. Part of my healing was realizing that the 4 and 5-year-old me was right, was ethical, had life all figured out, and I did at 4 and 5. My healing took off when I realized that all I was doing was reviving the 4 and 5-year-old self of me. Your healing will accelerate when you realize that the 4 and 5-year-old version of you was the right one all along, and you just need to go back to that. But we have this block in our minds that says a 4 and a 5-year-old couldn't possibly know anything. So we gaslight the 4 and 5-year-old who actually knows more about life than the average 50-year-old. Because there is a massive unspoken prejudice against children. When you realize that this is all bullshit, it changes everything. When I was 4 and 5, I knew what I wanted. In fact, it is the thing that I declare today. I wanted to be a scientist. It was the dumb fuckery of the 30-year-olds in my life back then that insisted that their way was better than my way. But their way was not my way. My way was defined by the time I was 4. This is normal. Most children have their lives figured out by the time they are 4. They are the ones who say, I want to be a basketball player. They're the ones who say, I want to be an astronaut. They're the ones who say, I want to be an archaeologist. A very small percentage, about 2% of us, actually get the dreams we chase, the dreams we want. Because 98% of us have 30-year-olds who are stupid, interfering with those dreams, which fucks up the rest of us while we're all wandering around going, who am I? What am I? Where am I going? What do I want? The 4-year-old couldn't possibly know because they're only 4. They know nothing about life. 4-year-olds know more about life than anybody else. I could not be more precise. I have spent 30 fucking years studying ontology. And I'm telling you, the people in life who have life figured out are the 4-year-olds. That's why they're so happy. Think about it. I don't meet very many unhappy 3-year-olds. I don't meet very many unhappy 4-year-olds. In fact, have you? Can you tell me how many miserable 4-year-olds you have met? In fact, I have never in my life, maybe two. I have met 2 miserable 4-year-olds, 2. And I know for a fact that they were being sexually assaulted by their parents. So, can you tell me any 4-year-old who's fuck miserable? Because I can't, aside from those 2. Can you tell me how many 40-year-olds are happy? How many 30-year-olds are happy? Think about it. When you look at the grand scheme of things, from infancy all the way up to 80 years old, let's go up to 100. Look at the percentage of happiness in each age group. Percentage of happy. I noticed that people between the ages of 1 and 5 are fucking happy. Like 98% of those people are fucking happy. And I noticed that 15-year-olds are about 50% happy. 20-year-old are maybe 2% happy. By the time you get to like 45 and 50, oh, those people are like 0.001% are happy. So I'm looking at this going, well, Occam's razor. Maybe the people between 0 and 5 have life figured out. I've already done this stuff. I've already gone through it. So then I've asked myself in my research, what were they doing that the rest of us weren't doing? Now, a bunch of ignorant, idiotic people by the name of adults will tell you, oh, well, they don't have problems. No, dipshits. No, that's what I say to those adults. We're going to go over this. The difference between the 0 to 5-year-olds is this. The 0 to 5-year-olds have problems. They do have problems. They have problems like, my mother's making me eat my peas. And the 5-year-old is saying, I don't like my fucking peas. They're saying that they don't like the peas. And if mother forces the peas down the child's throat, the child screams and goes, what the fuck are you doing? I said I don't like peas. It's called a refusal to suppress the emotions. Ironically, their defenses are relatively high, which is why they don't have a problem looking in your face saying, fuck you. I know children who used to do this. Fuck you. They were prominently vocal. Between 0 and 5, they are more vocal. They are more assertive. They are more confident. It was extraordinary. It was extraordinary. I remember what I was like. I was the child who at 8 years old went, I think what you guys are doing is ethically wrong. Yeah, I was that child. Children say shit. Children speak truth. Children don't suppress. Children have life figured out. So when I went back to building myself and healing, I went, well, when was I the most happy in life? I wasn't. But I did notice that I felt the most in control and empowered when I was a toddler. And then I did a whole lot of studies on toddlers and children, and I watched their happiness levels and all that jazz. And it was extraordinary. I used to work at a children's store for like 8 years, and I had access to a lot of children. So I was able to like interview over 50 children a day when I worked, which I did. I interviewed a lot of children, and it was extraordinary to see the happiness levels. That it wasn't until around 15 when the parents started to suppress the child, really come down hard on the child. And I noticed that a teen's resistance was in ratio to the control of the parent. The more controlling the parent, the more resistant and unhappy the child was. That is when everything tipped. So with children, I noticed that the 4-year-old has life pretty much figured out. Really, truly, they do. The 4-year-old is so spot on to, I know who I am. I know what I want. I know what I love. I want to be a veterinarian. Oh, I have to dissect cats? I don't want to do that. Never mind. I want to be an astronaut. Well, then go be an astronaut. And the children, and this is extraordinary, whenever I studied people who were most happy in life, who were successful, who were like Tony Award winning, they had supportive parents who learned how to get the fuck out of the child's way to support the child, as opposed to trying to control the child. 2% of the population actually parent this way, to get the fuck out of the child's way. That's what's wrong with you, is somebody got in the fuck your way. You had your life figured out by the time you were 4. And those where your answers are. Really, that's where your answers are. When people ask me, well, how do I get happy? Well, how do I know what I want? Well, what did you want when you were 4? And what I hear a lot of people saying is, well, I was a kid. I didn't know what I was talking about. Excuse you. Why are you devaluing the knowledge of a 4-year-old? I know why. It's because of ageism. Because we are conditioned to believe that children are idiots, which is the most horrific, gaslighting, stupid assumption an adult could make. You knew a lot more about yourself when you were 4 than you do now. The 4-year-old version of you knows so much about you because that was a time when you were making choices without fear. That was the time when you were making choices based on love. So you were able to make choices of the self at 4 years old without ever considering harm or threat or fear. You just loved. A 4-year-old has a lot figured out about life. We all really need to shut the fuck up and sit down and use 4-year-olds to learn. You want to know how to be happy? Listen to your 4-year-old and let your 4-year-old teach you. You want lessons of life? Literally, turn the 4-year-old into your teacher. You need to become the student of a 4-year-old. That's how I did it. That is exactly how I did it. Everyone's like, how did you heal? How did you? Really? That's what I did. I took a 4-year-old. I took my 4-year-old son and I made him my teacher. And I learned from my son. My favorite memory of my son, it was pouring rain. We were at the bus stop and he was just stomping in these mud puddles and he was covered in water and mud and he was so fucking happy. And in the middle of it, he went, "Mom, jump with me." So I jumped with him because he was happy and I wasn't. So he knew something that I didn't know and he had it figured out. So I chose to learn from the 4-year-old. It's extraordinary to me to watch 4-year-olds being the happiest people in the world. And these miserable fuck adults trying to tell a 4-year-old who's got happiness figured out how they should live. What the fuck are you doing? And then we turn around and we do that because law of reflection, so we repeat everything we do. So now we're 30-year-olds and 40-year-olds, and we're trying to tell a bunch of 4-year-olds, oh, you don't know a thing about life. Let me teach you. What, excuse you. Are you happy? Because the 4-year-old is. It seems like the 4-year-old's already got it all figured out, and you're just interfering with the happiness. So what the fuck are you doing? Aside from stroking your own goddamn ego, because God forbid anyone be happy if you're not. Because that's really what that's about. I'm miserable, therefore you can't be. I need to make you miserable so I feel less miserable about me being miserable because your happiness reminds me of how miserable I am. That is the real incentive behind parenting. Is parents do not want the reminder of how miserable they are. That's it right there. This is all the shit that we're not saying. So instead of taking action and choosing to find a way to be happy, take lessons from a 4-year-old because they got it figured out, we instead get rid of the reminder of how miserable we are. We don't want the reminder. My father was notorious for this. I was a constant reminder of everything he could not have, which is why I suffered so significantly, is because I was a constant reminder to him of how free he wasn't. And my God, did I fucking pay for reminding him of that. So it really comes down to this. If you want to know how to heal, literally use a 4-year-old as a role model. What are they doing that makes them so happy? They're not listening to a goddamn anybody else and they're just doing their own thing because they know how to listen to the self. All of my research, all of it is literally just analyzing a 4-year-old and translating it over into common language. That's all it is. I just analyzed all of the components, all of the common denominators of all the 4-year-olds that I talked to. That's all I did. I just took all the common denominators of all of the 4-year-olds. And when I started to piece them together, I went, well, first of all, this is physics. And second of all, they know how to live aligned to physics. And it's literally allowing the self. There's no religion yet that's knocked them down. There's no culture or tradition that's forcing them to conform. There's no job that's forcing enslavement. There's no nothing. There's just the self and their celebration of the self and their freedom to learn and explore uninhibited. It's extraordinary. Their learning centers are extraordinary. To watch a 4-year-old learn, my God, I was one of those mothers that sat there and just took documented notes of my children all day long watching them. They would wake up and go to work learning. And I would watch them play and learn and expand. One day, I remember my son climbing on the back of the recliner. And I just sat there and watched him going, what's he going to do? He was right next to the Christmas tree. And I was going, what's he going to do? And before I could even process and deduce, I watched him like a cat leap from the back of the recliner to the top of the Christmas tree. And then the entire Christmas tree, my son, and everything came down. I was up. He was fine. The tree was not. But there was no thing in his brain that said, I can't. There was no thing in his brain that said, should I? He just wanted, therefore he did. It was quite the adventure. Again, he was fine. But I'm looking at the whole situation. I never in a million years thought he would jump. That's why I didn't respond. I never in a million years thought he would jump. I was just like, what's he doing? No fucking idea that he would have jumped. But my God, 4-year-olds are fucking happy because they listen to the self. They learned without any kind of being told. They don't have to be told. I noticed that children start being miserable when adults tell them what to wear, how to dress, what to do, where to go. They are compromising their choice, their power of choice, and destroying and disintegrating the self-authority. That is when happiness occurs. So happiness, here's the ratio. Happiness, this is it. This is the formula. I'm going to go ahead and hit edit, and I'll just write it down here below. So the formula looks like this. It is happiness is in direct ratio to your power of choice and unresistance, zero level of resistance to self-authority. That is happiness. There you go. There's the formula. It is in ratio to your power of choice. I'm going to say here your uninhibited power of choice and level of resistance to self-authority. That's happiness. That's happiness. There's the formula. So the more self-power you have, the more power of choice, the more choices you make, the more self-authority you have, the happier you are because you're free. That's freedom, by the way. That's freedom. Freedom is happiness. So it's extraordinary when you really break it down and you start to realize that it's not until you start compromising power of choice, self-authority, that happiness goes away. And 30 and 40-year-olds lack power of choice. How many of you are doing a job because you need the money, therefore you do the job, but it's not what you want to do? It's extraordinary. In fact, one of the very first things that we are taught when you become an entrepreneur is do what makes you happy, because happiness produces money, which is why the 9-to-5 job people are usually middle class or lower and impoverished, because they're not happy. You've been conditioned to think that that's how you make money. No, it's not. You have to be an entrepreneur if you want to make money. No rich man, no millionaire, no billionaire has a 9-to-5. Have you ever noticed? Have you ever noticed that no entrepreneur, no millionaire or billionaire is a 9-to-5 job? It doesn't exist. Every millionaire and billionaire is an entrepreneur. Why? It's because joy and happiness is what gives you money, not a 9-to-5 job. So then why are you doing the 9-to-5 job? It doesn't give you money and you don't enjoy it. Ooh, I love logic. Why are you doing a 9-to-5 job? It's not enjoyable and it doesn't give you money. So why are you doing it? Like I said, the 4-year-old has life figured out. Thank you very much for your time, and may the kindest of words always find you.